Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. My name's Nick and in today's episode we are going to look at the new Premier League fixtures that were dropped last week. We're going to take analysis, we're going to rank them from 20 to 1. We're going to look at goals scored, past performance against those teams and how they did in those fixtures, corresponding fixtures last season. We're looking at home games versus away games. We're also going to look at clean sheets and previous results, as well as, of course, the FDR ratings. We're going to combine that all together and then give them a ranking from 20 down to 1. So without further ado, if you like this video, if it gives you a little bit more than what you're seeing on some of the others, don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new around here. So let's get started. First up, and with the worst FDR ranking, is Leeds United. My overall rank for them is 20th. Now, part of that, a couple of things to take into consideration when we look at these. Of course, with the newly promoted sides, we don't have any historical data on playing against other Premier League teams. And especially over the last couple of seasons, the promoted sides have been the weakest in the Premier League. So that will take into consideration. Now, just to explain the stats on the screen here, obviously I've got an overall ranking and you'll see how each of these teams are ranked in a full table at the end of the video. But we're going to look at their FDR score. So what is their ranking of their first 5 games? And if you look here, Everton at home is an FDR 2, Arsenal away is an FDR 4, and then Newcastle, Fulham and Wolves are all FDR 3. So their FDR ranking is 15. They've got 2 home games and 3 away games. So again, in the first 5, obviously one of those is going to win. So obviously having 3 away games is harder than having 3 home games. And of course we don't have any historical data. We can't see anything around how many goals they've scored in corresponding fixtures last year or clean sheets as well. So without that information, we do expect obviously that the bottom 3 teams will be the newly promoted sides. Moving then on to Sunderland, who are ranked 19th on my list. Their FDR rating is actually slightly better at only 14, which helps them out. Now, they do actually play Burnley, so one of the promoted sides, in their first 2 games. Now, they are away to Burnley, but when they played away to Burnley last season in the Championship, it was 0-0. So there was no goals scored, but there was a clean sheet. So there is a chance that they could potentially get a clean sheet again this year. Now, obviously, it's an away fixture, but of the first 5 games, they've got 3 home fixtures. So you can see why their stats are slightly better than Leeds, because they've got a clean sheet on there. They've got more home games than away games, and they're playing a promoted side in that first 5 game week. So that's why they're 19th on the list. Next up are Burnley. The FDR rating is 15, 3 home games, 2 away games, which is the right swing for the first 5 games. Of course, they're playing Sunderland at home, which is a nicer fixture, obviously being at home. It was 0-0, as we already discussed last season between those two when Burnley were at home. So they do have the 1 clean sheet on there as part of the rankings. But of course, they've got Liverpool at home as well in game week 4. So again, probably not a team that we're going to target for our FPL teams, but it's just something to keep in consideration. Everton, ranked 17th on my list. Their FDR ranking is 16, which is one of the highest for the first 5 games. Obviously, they've got Liverpool away, which is one of the only fixtures that are currently ranked as FDR 5. They've got 3 away games, so they've got more away games. And if you look at their corresponding fixtures last season, they lost 3, drew 1, conceded 5 goals, scored 0 goals, scored 1 goal, sorry, in a 1-1 draw, and got no clean sheets. So if you just look at their fixtures there, yes, they've got Leeds away, first game of the season, but their corresponding matches for the next 4, they lost 3, drew 1. So that's why they're sitting bottom of the Premier League sides for this season on 17th in this list. Coming in on 16th is West Ham United. They've got a nice FDR rating of 14, 1 green and 4 greys. So it's actually a really decent FDR ranking on there as well. And obviously Sunderland away, first game of the season. A lot of people are going to be looking at Jared Bowen, especially given his form at the back end of last season. 3 home games, 2 away games, so at the right swing in that sense. But if you look at their corresponding results last year, at Chelsea at home, they lost 3-0. At Nottingham Forest away, they lost 3-0. Tottenham at home, they drew 1-1. And then Crystal Palace at home, they lost 2-0. So again, no clean sheets, only one goal scored against those exact same 4 opponents. It doesn't look good as a starting run for West Ham. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that the results are going to be exactly the same next season. But if you were looking at the stats only, you go, maybe Jarrod Bowen for game week 1, but then do you want to be making a transfer out in those following weeks? So realistically, it's a tough start for West Ham based on how they performed last year against those exact same teams. Next up at 15 on the list is Spurs. Again, an FDR rating of 14, which is actually one of the lowest on there. But they do have Burnley at home first game of the season. They do have West Ham away in those first 5. So they've got 2, green or FDR 2 fixtures in there. They do have Man City away in game week 2. But if you look at the corresponding results from those fixtures last season, 4-0 loss to Man City, a 2-2 draw at home to Bournemouth, a 1-1 draw away to West Ham, and then a 3-2 loss away to Brighton. So 5 goals were scored, so you could still potentially look at them as an attacking option. But obviously to take into consideration that Ange Postecoglou has left the club. Thomas Frank is now coming in, so there is a new manager coming in. We do expect there to be some new signings as well, and that's something just to consider as we go through this whole video, is that of course things will change with the transfer window, with manager changes and everything else as well. But 5 goals scored in the first 5 games suggests that there is potentially some attacking threat there, but no clean sheets, lots of goals conceded. Certainly wouldn't be considering any defensive options for Tottenham for the first 5 game weeks. Coming in hot at rank 14 overall is Wolverhampton Wanderers. FDR of 15, which is obviously pretty standard on there. A couple of tough fixtures with Man City at home and Newcastle away in the first 5. Obviously straddled by Everton at home and Leeds away. So they do have a newly promoted side in that first 5. 1 clean sheet during that time, so they did beat Bournemouth 1-0. But also 2 losses in there to Man City and to Newcastle, and 1 draw against Everton. 3 goals scored, but also you've got to remember that they've lost Cunha, who's moved to Man United. Right, Ait-Nouri from their defence has now moved to Man City. So that team has been taking 2 of their main FPL assets have now gone. So yeah, probably Wolverhampton Wanderers will be one that I avoid in my first team, given the first 5 weeks, until we see who's coming in. Strand Larsen might be a cheap enabler option going forward now that Cunha has gone, but again, probably won't be in my team. Next up, and 13th in the rankings, is Bournemouth, an FDR of 16, so a really tough start for them. Liverpool away, first game of the season. They lost that 3-0 last year, so if you look at their, they've got no newly promoted sides. They lost 3 of those corresponding fixtures last season, including the one to Wolves at home. And of course, if you look at the Bournemouth's defence, it's taken a huge battering with players like Zabarnyi, Huijsen have left. And who was the other guy as well? I think 3 of their Kirkes has gone to Liverpool as well. So it's going to be a tough one for Bournemouth. They're a really well-run club, so they will bring in reinforcements. But that defence has been absolutely decimated. So certainly, where they were good last season, there's talks about Semenyo potentially going to Tottenham. They could be really decimated in terms of some of their key assets that were great last year being disappeared from the team. So they're currently ranked 13th on my list. Next up, and ranked 12th in my fixture difficulty rating for the first 5 games, is Manchester United. Now, last season they finished 15th in the league. Their FDR rating for the first 5 is 17, with Arsenal at home and Man City away, and no green fixtures in the first 5. It looks like a tough run for them. Interestingly, Burnley at home is not being classified as a green fixture for them, so I think that is potentially ranged there. So maybe their ranking does come down to 16, but I put Burnley as an FDR 2 for sure. 5 goals scored and 1 clean sheet in that period as well, and given the fact that they've got a promoted side in there as well, suggests that there might be some options there. And with Cunha coming in, obviously you've got Bruno Fernandes as well. But we need to see something from Ruben Amorim's team that suggests that they're going to be better than they were last season. Yes, they got to the Europa League final, but in the league they were really struggling. So it's a bit of a mixed bag here now. Obviously, as we're getting into rank 12, we're sort of at that middle table mark. They did have 2 wins. They beat Fulham away and they beat Man City away. So even though that's classified as an FDR 4, they did actually win that corresponding fixture last season. So there is some chance there to get some attacking returns, but again, probably one that I'll avoid given their form from last season. So next up are Brentford, ranked 11th in my rankings, FDR 14, which is really nice. Grey fixtures in green, only no reds or purples in there as well. Sunderland away is a nice fixture for the promoted side in there as well. And if you look at that, 3 goals scored but 2 clean sheets in that period. So they had a 0-0 draw against Chelsea. They also had a 2-0 win against Nottingham Forest. So there's a couple of clean sheets there. So there is some options for defensive opportunities within that Brentford side. But then we've got to remember that Thomas Frank is now no longer at Brentford. We don't yet know at time of recording who their new manager is going to be. So there's also talk that potentially Brian Mbeumo is going to leave, with both Tottenham and Manchester United interested. So they're ranked 11th, so in the bottom half of the table. They've got a fairly decent fixture run, according to the FDR rankings, but only 1 win, 2 losses and 1 draw, and obviously with a promoted team in there as well. Keeps them just in the bottom half of the table. So one to avoid for me, just because we don't know who the manager's going to be. I'm just not quite sure what that team's going to look like for the first few games of the season. Okay, we have hit the midway point of this video, and if you've got this far in, please do hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new around here. It massively helps out the channel. Ranked 10th is Crystal Palace, FDR of 15, so pretty much bang on there, with a couple of tough fixtures of Chelsea away and Aston Villa away, but then some nice fixtures of Sunderland at home, and then West Ham away at game weeks 4 and 5. Now they do have 3 away games and 2 home games, but they scored 6 goals in their corresponding fixtures, and obviously one of them is against a promoted side, so there's no data for that as well, and 1 clean sheet. Someone like an Eze, potentially a Mateta, who was really strong at the end of last season. There's a couple of options in there, but there's a lot of draws, and obviously 1 win, so potentially not from the defensive side, but there might be some attacking options, because it seems like they were scoring goals in at least every game in those corresponding fixtures from last season. Okay, moving into the top half of the table, and Fulham coming in at rank number 9, an FDR of 15, which of course we know is pretty middling at the moment. And if you look at their fixtures, Brighton away, Man United at home, Chelsea away is a tough one, then followed by promoted Leeds at home, and then Brentford at home as well. 3 home games, 2 away games, 4 goals scored in the corresponding fixtures, no clean sheets. So you do expect them to potentially get 2, maybe 3 wins out of that as well. It's a tougher one for them, not a huge amount of goals scored, but Fulham are a pretty stable team, so if you're looking for maybe for an enabler in there, that may be helpful to fill out some of the spots in your team. Moving on to rank 8 and Nottingham Forest, and they had an outstanding year last year. For most of the season they were in the top 4. They kind of fell off a little bit towards the end as the pressure came on and the other big teams started to pile on some results, and ultimately they finished 7th in the league. Sorry, their FDR is 14, so it is a good run there. They do have Arsenal away in game week 4, but either side of that got West Ham at home and then newly promoted Burnley away. Only 1 win in the corresponding fixtures from last year, 4 goals scored, 1 clean sheet. So there are some options there, but again, we just don't know what we're going to get with Forest this year. Are we going to get the team at the start of the year that were winning games and, Chris Wood and Elanga? Or are we going to get the team at the end of the year that was struggling to find the back of the net, didn't quite have that same form? So Nottingham Forest are an interesting one. As I said, those first couple of games look good, and obviously you'd probably look at rotational players, so you'd take them out for that Arsenal game, but you'd want to maybe target that West Ham and Burnley away as fixtures that you could potentially get some results from as well. Next up, coming in at 7 on the list, is Manchester City. Now, it's funny, if I think about perception, Man City had a bad season last season, but they still finished 3rd. And for most teams, finishing third is a great result. The FDR for the first 5 is 16. They've got 2 home games, 3 away games. But actually, if you look at their corresponding results, they only scored 5 goals. They kept no clean sheets. They had 1 win and 4 losses in that, including the 5-1 loss to Arsenal away. So while it looks like a fairly decent one, Wolves were not great last season. Tottenham were not great last season. Man United were not great last season. They were all bottom of the table teams. Man City didn't beat, apart from Wolves away, they lost every other game, and some heavy losses in there as well. 4-0 to Tottenham, 5-1 to Arsenal. So Man City obviously is a challenge because of the Pep roulette, the rotation. He spent a lot of money in January. He spent more money again currently in the current transfer window. There is, of course, still the threat of the 115 charges over them as well. But you've got to expect that Man City are going to come back stronger this year. Pep's not going to accept another season of the way that they played last year. And these results may just be an anomaly. But given that they'd lost 4, got no clean sheets and only scored 5 goals, that's why they're sitting 7th in my rankings. Okay, into the top 6 now. Newcastle United coming in at 6 overall, an FDR rating of 15, 2 home games, 3 away games, 8 goals scored in corresponding fixtures. Now, bearing in mind that one of those fixtures is a newly promoted side, so there's no data for that. That's a nice return of goals. So looking at attacking threats from Newcastle, people like Murphy, people like Isak, for example, are really, really great options there. They did have 1 clean sheet as well during that time. And they've got a couple of nice fixtures. Obviously, it starts tough with Villa away and Liverpool at home, but then Leeds away, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away. Look like nice fixtures for that as well. So Newcastle is certainly on my thought process when it comes to players that I'd like to have at least 1, if not 2, attacking options, and potentially rotational defenders that I can bring in from game week 3. Next up, and in 5th place, is Chelsea. An FDR rating of 14, so one of the lowest in the leagues. 2 home games, 3 away games, so not the ideal swing there. 6 goals scored, 2 clean sheets, which is the best. So I think the highest is 2 clean sheets of any of the 20 teams, given the corresponding fixtures. They've got no promoted sides, but they do have West Ham away in game week 2. So look, it's quite an interesting one here. Chelsea, I wouldn't really necessarily consider them for defensive options, but looking at the data here and looking at the fixtures that they had, even in 2 of their draws, they were 1-1 draws, so they could easily potentially keep clean sheets in that as well. So Chelsea defence is an option. Attacking, it's a tough one because they've got such a deep squad. They've just bought Delap. There's potential that Jackson is now moving off, so that might make Delap a nice option. But again, one of the other things that we've not even talked about in this video is that we don't know any of the FPL pricing yet. So, of course, yes, we'd love to have some Chelsea players in there, but we don't know. Cole Palmer has been really out of form in the second half of the season. But looking at those fixtures, you go, yeah, absolutely, you'd want Palmer in. But based on his form, would you have him? So let's see what he continues to do in the Club World Cup. But right now, Chelsea is an interesting one, and they rank 5th on my table. Coming in then at 4th with the lowest FDR of everyone is Aston Villa. FDR of 15, 2 home games, 3 away games. Everton away, Sunderland away within the first 5, Newcastle, Brentford, and Crystal Palace in the first 3. 8 goals scored, which is a really good number. 2 clean sheets. So, good attacking threat, good clean sheets, good fixtures. So for me, Aston Villa certainly team that I want to target. It does look like they've got a little bit of PSR concern, so they may potentially sell some players before the end of June to comply with PSR for this year. But the likes of Morgan Rogers, he was a great enabler last year for my team personally, but is his price going to jump up? Will he now be a 7.5, which makes him maybe less exciting as an option on there as well? But as I said, a really exciting team to look at, a bit of a differential on there, but great FDR rating, good results last year, good goals scored and clean sheets as well. So Aston Villa will be certainly someone that I'm looking at as a team for players that I'll be bringing in. moving into the top three then, and the surprise pick of the bunch is Brighton. An FDR of 15, 3 home games, 2 away games, 12 goals scored in the corresponding fixtures last year, and 1 clean sheet. Now, if you look at the same fixtures that they had last year, Fulham away, Everton away, Man City at home, Bournemouth away, and Tottenham at home, they won all 5. So that was a great result for them, and lots of goals scored in that as well. 1 clean sheet in there as well. So Brighton are a really interesting one. There is potential, of course, that João Pedro will leave, but there's lots of attacking threat in there. There's some potential defensive options as well. So Brighton are the surprise pick for me for differentials to have in that team from game week 1. Okay, before you say it, yes, I am an Arsenal fan, and this isn't a biased point of view. I'll show you how I got to these results. But Arsenal finished second again. First FDR ranking is 16, so one of the highest of all 20 teams, with Liverpool away and Man City at home within the first 5. They've also got Newcastle away after that as well in game week 6. So really not a great run of fixtures. But if you look at their corresponding results, 2 draws, 2 wins, and big wins as well, 3-0 and 5-1. 11 goals scored, 1 clean sheet, and they're facing a promoted side, Leeds, at home in game week 2, which is why they've ended up where they are, second again in that as well. So some good options here in terms of attacking options. Again, if you're looking, and Arsenal are potentially looking at bringing in a striker, although that saga seems to have been going on for a long time now. So whether you want to look at one of those new strikers, whether you want to look at Havertz or Marino, we don't really know who's going to play that number 9 role now that Havertz is back. But Saka might certainly be an option as a staple to have in your team if you're looking at the premiums. And then lastly, the team with the best fixtures for the start of the season are Liverpool. Last season's champions, their FDR ranking is 15. They've got some tough fixtures in there with Newcastle away and Arsenal at home in their first 3. But then after that, newly promoted side Burnley and then Everton at home. Now, again, like Arsenal, 2 wins, 2 draws and a promoted side in there. 9 goals scored, 2 clean sheets. So certainly one to be thinking for in terms of defensive options. Again, you probably want some rotation in there given Newcastle and Arsenal in game week 2 and game week 3. But again, they've ran away as champions. They've strengthened really well with Florian Wirtz and Kirkes coming in. And so, yeah, I think there's some good options there within that Liverpool side, and certainly someone that I'll be looking at potentially tripling up on for my first team going into game week 1. Okay, so this is the final table for me based on the Premier League fixture difficulty rankings. And as I said, I took into consideration here their league position last year, the FDR rankings, totals. We looked at the number of goals scored, how many clean sheets they had, home games, if they had more home games than away games, and then we had points. And when I did points, I talked about wins and draws. So 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. So I worked out their points for that as well. And then obviously if they were playing a promoted team. So obviously if they, no one played more than 1 promoted team on there as well. So, and then I just ranked them all by each of those categories, and then gave them an overall average ranking based on all of those categories. And this is how everyone finished up. So Liverpool, Arsenal, Brighton, Aston Villa and Chelsea are all going to be teams that I'm targeting in terms of building that first team out, given the data that I've looked at. Liverpool and Arsenal, you want to be looking at your premiums, your Salahs, your Sakas, maybe defenders that you can rotate between them as well. With Brighton, you certainly want to be looking at the attackers, given the fact that they were the highest scorers on their corresponding fixtures last season. And of course, doesn't mean that they're going to do exactly the same, but it is a strong indicator of the results that they got last year. Aston Villa, you of course, again, sitting in there quite nicely, second for points in terms of results from last year, first in terms of their FDR ranking as well. So for me, this is how I got to this table, and I've put some notes in here as well. Obviously, you've got to look at like Brentford and Tottenham having new managers, and of course, we've not taken into consideration price changes, what players are going to cost, any new transfers that come in as well. So all of that will, of course, make an impact when I look at this a bit closer to the season. But I thought that with the new fixtures coming out, I've been really missing FPL, so I thought I'd drop a video for you all. If you like what you're seeing, do hit that like button for me. Hit subscribe if you're new around here, because there'll be lots of content coming up before the new season to show you how I'm going to be setting up and getting ready for game week 1. Once again, thank you for watching FPL Fanzone. If you've got to the end of the video, you're a true fan. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment below. What do you think of my rankings? Is there anyone you feel that I got massively wrong? Or any things that I've missed in terms of considerations, or something you'd like me to have a look at from the data from last season? Let me know in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks again for watching, and may all your arrows be green.